Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Kris. This is the final part. This is part 6 of Dr. Roy Casagranda. This guy right here. It's The Rise of Islam. Before we get started, if you can click that thumbs up, helps me out, bare minimum, please. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Click on the thanks button if you want to donate to the channel. Sponsor a video, say thanks, whatever, your choice. I don't make money off of the videos, really don't. I made like $14 in ad revenue in like 3 months, so I don't make much off that. So, any donation helps, keeps the videos rolling, and prevents me from putting up a membership thing or a Patreon, something where I am trying to make a little bit more. So, it's your choice, but anything is appreciated. All right, let's get to the final part. These are the questions. There was one question before, but now he's going to roll into the real questions. And this looks like a walrus tusks. All right.
The Crusades are one of the periods of history I feel is very weak in my knowledge of.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that's referenced a lot. Do you have a recommended book or resource about the Crusade, that period of history particularly? I feel like everything
All right, I had to try to fix that that glitch.
have read or known about that is really dated and old.
I'm trying to remember the author. There's a book called The Crusades Through Arab Eyes. It's a pretty solid read. There's also Sir John Bagot Glubb Basha. You could just do Glubb, G-L-U-B-B. He was a British officer who became an Arabophile and went native. When the British Empire withdrew from Transjordan, which is today Jordan, he stayed and became an officer in the Transjordanian army. He wrote a brief history of the Arab people, a book on the early years, but I think he also wrote something on Crusades. I could be wrong about that. I might be mixing him up with somebody else. But he's a good read just to get general Arab background stuff. There's Albert Hourani. I hate saying his name like he's French, but I just feel like I have to. Albert Hourani. He wrote a really wonderful book on Arab history. It starts off chronologically, and then he dumps the chronological stuff and just sort of starts talking about it more culturally. But you want the Crusades in a 3-minute nutshell?
Yeah, that'd be awesome, but I was just thinking if I wanted to dig into this on my own some more.
Yeah, I can maybe come up with more of a list. Offhand, I can't think of any other good books on it. It's really hard finding stuff on the Crusades. Anything where European men aren't the good guys or aren't doing really well suddenly gets, I can't find anything. Crimes against humanity by white guys. No, shh, that didn't happen. Now, I don't know if this is true, but a student who's a film student.
There's a lot of the stuff about the Crusades that I always heard was, it was a lot of the Christians trying to stop the murder of Christians in Muslim land. And that was what I was always told. And I was like, well, why were they killing them? Oh, that's just what they did. That's how it was always explained to me. Not in school necessarily, but that's just kind of how it was always explained was, they were murdering Christians, so Christians in Europe went down there. And then as I got older and started looking at this, I was like, oh no, they just had a problem. Didn't like the fact that they were, not putting up with any of this stuff anymore, so they just decided to go down and attack, and they did it multiple times.
Told me that the original screenplay for Kingdom of Heaven had no good Crusaders in it, and when Hollywood got a hold of this, is this true? Do you know?
But Orlando
It sounds true. When Hollywood got a hold of it, they created Jeremy Irons' character. So Jeremy Irons' character is not a historical character. They just made him up so they could have one good crusader. And then they rewrote...
He's always the tolerant Christian guy.
yeah, he always.
Yeah, always.
Mission, he was so wonderful.
always.
I love that guy. They rewrote Ibeline of Balian's role, and he's like some random guy who gets sort of pulled on. He was born in Palestine. He was like a second generation crusader. Like, he wasn't some random blacksmith in Germany somewhere. And they have him accidentally have this love affair with, I can't remember, Ava Green is the actress. I can't remember the name of the person she's playing. But that actually happened because he was plotting with her to get rid of the king. They made it innocent when the reality is they're just backstabbing bastards all. And, they did try to show, the funniest scene ever in that movie is everybody's like kind of starving and it's desert. And Ibeline, who's played by Legolas, that's his best role ever. He should have never played any other role, just Legolas. He suddenly goes and gets a shovel and starts digging a hole. And he digs them a well. The Arabs invented modern agriculture. They're the guys who figured out crop rotation. They're the guys who created the sugar industry, the coffee industry. They're the first country on earth to pack a ship full of ice and then put fresh food in it and send it overseas to another country. They're the guys who hybridized plants, who built the world's first irrigation dams. They're the guys who invented hydraulic pumps so you could pump water out to far off places. He taught them to build a well. Like, it's the most absurd scene ever. Like, I burst out laughing, and of course people in the theater are like, why is he laughing? That's not funny. White guy showing brown people how to do things. That's wonderful. See how good we are. So there was probably 9 or 10 officially dated or officially numbered crusades. The first 3 got to the Middle East. The 4th one conquered Constantinople, which I think is hysterical. The first one is the one that captures Jerusalem. It takes them 2 years to get to Jerusalem, and then they capture it a year later. The second one is a reinforcement crusade. It's just to send reinforcements. And the third one is to recapture Jerusalem because they lost it. The reason they lose it is what the story of the movie Kingdom of Heaven is about. Actually, when I left the movie theater, I turned to a friend and I went, okay, I can't wait for the movie that shows Nazis as good guys. And sure enough, Downfall came out of like a year or 2 later. And
Downfall, by the way, is a fantastic movie. Yes, does make Hitler seem like... Well, first off, whoever played Hitler in Downfall did a phenomenal job. But they really... So Downfall is done through the eyes of Hitler's secretary when he basically goes to the bunker. So as it's told, it's I believe she wrote the book for it. I haven't read the book, just saw the movie. But she wrote a book, like basically her life in the final days with Hitler and everything. Clearly, she was I want to say an SS, but I whatever it was, she was a Nazi, basically. So when she tells this story, she tells it with like love and affection for Hitler and all the terrible things he's going through. It's a good movie because you get to see the other side of it. There's also it was a short, unrelated. But it was a short, and somebody was, I don't know if you've ever seen Inglourious Bastards, and Christoph Waltz is the Nazi, he's hunting. He's like a Jewish hunter or whatever. And he starts off and he goes to this house and he's talking to the guy and he's like, I know you have Jews hiding here, but he's speaking a language that he knows they're there. And he starts speaking a language which he knows the Jews won't be able to understand. and he's talking to the guy, and then he's asking him like, "Oh, you're a farmer. May I have a glass of your delicious milk?" But he's talking to this guy, and he starts speaking into a language, and the guy has two daughters, and he's like, "Oh, I'd hate to have something happen to your daughters." So the guy says where they are, and they're hiding in the crawl space, like under his floor. And phenomenal movie. Got some funny parts, but Christoph Waltz is a psychopath. Just a psychopath. But he was asked, "How did you dig down to play that villain?" And he just looks at him. He's like, "What do you mean?" And the guy's like, "How did you dig down to play that character? You know, that villain?" And he goes, "He's not a villain. That guy, if he was a real person, which he wasn't, but if he's a real person, he doesn't think what he's doing is wrong. What he's doing is right. He's on the right side." When I was growing up, I've talked about it before. I've mentioned it before. When I was growing up in the early 90s, I met, late 80s actually, early 90s, I met a relative, wasn't really related. His name was Uncle Jack. I don't remember her name. I want to say it was Barbara, but I'm probably wrong. Uncle Jack just stands out because Uncle Jack didn't have a thumb, and he said it was because he sucked his thumb as a boy. So his thumb fell off. So it was to all of us to not suck our thumbs, which I was past that age. Uncle Jack was a German. He was German. He never talked to me about it, but he talked to my dad. He talked to my grandpa, my uncles on that side. But Uncle Jack was a Nazi. Spoke very highly about Adolf Hitler. Hitler didn't do anything wrong. The history is written by the winners, and the winners are going to trash Adolf for the great things that he was trying to do to get us out of the dirt that you all started. Now, this is not me hearing directly from him. These are the things that he told, like my dad retelling me things. And my dad goes, "We just don't see it that way." And he goes, "No, you wouldn't see it that way because you are looking at it, you're indoctrinating it from the side of him being evil. So right off the bat, you're not going to look at anything he did with any kind of understanding. You're going to look at it through the lens of he's wrong, what he did is wrong, doesn't matter." He's got a point. I don't think every single thing Hitler did was terrible, and I'm not referring to anything in particular. I'm just saying in his entire life, he did not do bad. His entire life. Couldn't have. Not possible. But there are some things that I could say he did that were pretty bad. I think we can all agree. We could probably name one or two. But my Uncle Jack never believed that and went to his grave believing that Adolf Hitler never did anything wrong. Was not a bad guy. And, he believed history will vindicate him. I think he's wrong on that one. And if he were alive today and we were to have this conversation, I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't agree with you on that one." But he was at a concentration camp and believed that they were there just to work. He was actually later on shipped off to the front line, and I don't remember whatever battle he was in. Yeah, he was at a concentration camp. Didn't bat an eye that the concentration camp full of Jews, not to him. They were full of criminals. They were full of bad people who were doing bad things to the German economy and to the German people. The killing and all that stuff, I don't know if he saw. And if he did, he didn't care. They were criminals. They were bad people. So the view, the world view of the Crusaders going down is they're good. They're righteous. God's on their side. On the other side, the Muslims are saying they're coming into our territory. They're enemies. They're coming in. We've got to get rid of them. God's on our side. No one is wrong until they lose, and then history writes them as the villains.
Downfall is about the last month in Nazi Germany. It's about April of 1945. And there is a character who is a SS doctor who's clearly a good guy, but he's also SS. And ironically enough, the actor who plays him is Jewish. And this movie is set in Russia because it's St. Petersburg is the last large German architecture built city that's still intact because it didn't get bombed out of existence in World War II. What happens in the movie, of course, is the kind of crazy crusaders, because they had crazy crusaders and not crazy crusaders, which is weird. It'd be like crazy ISIL and not crazy ISIL. It doesn't make sense. The crazy crusaders in the movie keep wanting, and they're the Knights Templar because they're always portrayed as being over the top crazy. They keep trying to pick a fight with the Arabs, which actually was happening.
I think now he went off Downfall and he's talking to Kingdom of Heaven. I don't want anyone to think Downfall is about the Crusades. That was Hitler.
Kept doing it. And finally, they did actually capture Salahuddin's sister, and they gang raped her and murdered her. And Salahuddin went, "Fine, I'm killing you. You got me going. Thanks for doing that to my sister." And he beats them at the Battle of Hattin in 1187. And the irony of this is his Arab armies were democratic. And so even though Salahuddin is in charge, he's the general in charge, he still has to deal with what his soldiers vote for. And after the battle, they've got all these crusader prisoners. They vote to kill all of them. And Salahuddin goes, "No, that's not us, that's them. We will never be them," right? The tolerance intolerance thing. That's what they would do to us now. And we don't do that. And the soldiers are like, "We don't care. We've been fighting these crusaders for almost 100 years now, 90 years.
Yeah, that's tough because if you do kill them, what's the response? The response is they wiped out all of our guys. All right, we just get more. If you win, you killed some, you send them back home. Hopefully that is hey, look, we could have, we didn't. Let's just end this. It's done. But there's always a chance. What happens? Those men get home. They talk about it. More people gather up. And some of those people jump on board because they feel like they have unfinished business. And they march back down. It really is kind of a lose-lose situation.
Sick of them. We have to punish them. We have to hurt them. And he has to negotiate with his own army. They go back and forth. Here's what they come up with. They will only execute the Knights Templars and the Knights Hospitallers, who were the fanatic warrior monks who took vows of chastity and poverty and were extremely filthy rich and founded the banks in Switzerland.
The Freemasons?
Maybe. Oh. I don't really know. This is the story that seems to be. It could be, yeah. Some people think, and some people think they became the bankers of Switzerland. Some people think they became the Masons of Scotland. The truth is in there somewhere. So they line up the Templars and the Hospitallers for execution, and Salahuddin still doesn't want to do this. So he has guys who speak Latin, Arabs who speak Latin, walk up and down the lines going, "Hey, we can't execute Muslims. We can't execute Muslims." Wink, wink, wink. And so when the Crusaders, the Templars and Hospitallers would get to the executioner, they would immediately convert on the spot. And they're, "All right, fine." And they put them into the Mamluk armies, which were these slave armies. So they got turned into slave warriors, but they didn't get executed. And we don't really know, but we think about 3/4 of the Templars and Hospitallers converted that day. The weird thing was there were a bunch of Crusaders who weren't Templars or Hospitallers who started volunteering that they were. And so maybe another 10% the number of Hospitallers and Templars who were scheduled for execution who didn't get executed end up showing up, and they're like, we're Templars. And the Arabs are like, you don't get it, right? That's not a food line. That ends badly at the end. You don't want to get in this line. And they're like, no, we do, because if we die this way, we'll go straight to heaven. And they actually lied about who they were so that they could be martyred like this. Then Salah went to Jerusalem, and of course, Ibelin of Balian ends up in command of the defenses of Jerusalem, and he's hunkered down and trying to hold the city. And the Arabs keep attacking, and they're having a hard time getting it. And finally, they create a breach in the wall, which is depicted in the movie. And then Salahuddin and Ibelin of Balian get together and negotiate a surrender. And again, Salahuddin is stuck negotiating with his men. He's like, they want to enslave all the Crusaders. They want to take all of them into slavery. He's like, again, that's not us, that's them. This isn't okay. They negotiate back and forth. Finally, they come up with, I forget the number, but they came up with something like a quarter of them will be enslaved. But if they have the money, they can buy their freedom. So Salahuddin goes, okay, so this is the deal. We're going to enslave 20% of you, a quarter of you, whatever the number was. But if you have the money, we can free you. You can buy your freedom. And Ibelin's like, okay, thanks. We surrender. And Salahuddin goes, no. I'm going to give you guys 48 hours to sort this out. And Ibelin goes, what's the point? We'll surrender right now. Because if you have the gold, you can buy your freedom. And Ibelin's like, I don't get it. Plunder the city. Plunder your own city so that you can free your crusaders. So he has to explain it to him. So that's not the movie. He plunders Jerusalem in the 48 hours he has. They come out, they put the gold out, and they count it up, and they don't have enough. They have enough to do half of the Crusaders that are going to be enslaved. The other half are still going to have to be enslaved. And Saladin goes, that's it? That's all the gold? You've been here for almost a century, and this is all you've accumulated? You guys are incompetent. We should have conquered you a long time ago. And then Saladin walks off. He goes into his own tent, pulls out his own coffer, his own gold chest, walks over and drops it and goes, add this to freeing these dumbasses. And when this happens, a bunch of his generals are like, all right. And they go empty their own coffers. And by the time they're done, they end up enslaving 5% of the Crusaders. But, after Salahuddin bankrupts himself. And this is how they cut. So, the stark contrast of fighting their anger for the abuse that they had, and still trying to be human and get through this somehow. I find really fascinating because you can see the intolerance seeping in and the anger seeping in. And then, of course, the Crusades don't quit. This isn't the end. The Crusader states will function in some way, shape, or form for the next 104 years. They finally fizzle. Every historian gives you a slightly different date, but somewhere around 1291. Having said that, there's an organization that's an observer member of the United Nations. They have almost the same status that the Palestinians have. It's just observer status. They're not voting members. It's called Sovereign Military Order of Malta. It's not Malta. That's a different thing. There's a Republic of Malta. This is the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. It's the Crusaders. The Crusaders actually have UN observer status. They're still around, and they're still banking on getting Jerusalem someday. So in case you're wondering where they went. I wonder how you become one. Do you... I'm sure it's through the Catholic Church somehow. There's got to be, but I'd like to volunteer. And then do you get a salary? This could be an interesting gig. You obviously have to have some kind of military training or experience. And then the rest of the Crusades were the Baltic states, which, why? And then there was one to Malta. And Malta, you go there, they speak Arabic, but they write in Latin letters, and they're all fanatic Catholics. And their flag is a cross. But the language they're speaking is Arabic with hints of Italian mixed in there, but it's really just Arabic. And so it's sort of a strange place because it's got this strange Crusader history. But anyway, I've gone over by 5 minutes, so any more questions? You said you were going to ask me one.
Well, no, I just want to know what your opinion was if you thought the Arabs were like the last classical empire.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, because I bet if you sat down and did this, I haven't done this, but I'm just guessing, every empire sort of evolves as it goes. In the sense of classical as in the tolerant brand, yeah. Right? I mean, when you think of the Spanish Empire, they were just brutal murderers. The
Spanish in America, North and South, were brutal. They used to, they would capture Mexicans or Central Americans, South Americans, have sex with them, have children, all kind of stuff like that, and then would sell the children. After a while, would sell the children into slavery, and that was a way for them to keep slavery going. They in Mexico and I mean they had South America for a while before oh, I'm so sorry, dude, I forgot your name. He was a liberator in South America. I think he's buried in Venezuela. Oh. Anyways, in the 1800s, he freed a bunch of them. Not people, but a bunch of the countries. Yeah, it's Spanish. When the colonies were still being set up, Spanish were brutal.
16th century was the worst century in human history for death, human-inflicted death toll. The 20th century is number 2. That's how bad that was. So, the British Empire, for all its we're good guys kind of stuff, it turns out to have been quite ugly.
I wanted to say that again.
Right? I mean, when you think of the Spanish Empire, they were just brutal murderers. The 16th century was the worst century in human history for death, human-inflicted death toll. The 20th century is number 2. That's how bad that was. So, the British Empire...
And there were 2 world wars in that one.
Empire, for all its we're good guys kind of stuff, it turns out to have been quite ugly. Like, for years, the Brits have said we were not cruel during the Kenyan uprising, the Mau Mau. And, now, because of freedom of information stuff, it's turned out that they were torturing people, disappearing people, raping people. So the idea of the good empire the Brits supposedly had, that sort of burst, that bubble sort of burst. I think the Mongols wanted to be, but they're just so over the top cruel. They were so cruel that they would look for ways to be cruel. Like, they were, at one point they captured a Persian town and they're like, what do we do? It's so boring cutting people's heads off. So what they decided to do is they got cement and they made people lay down and they cemented them together and they made a fort with parapets and arrow slits. And of course the people on the bottom are crushed to death and the people on the top die from exposure. Why? So even though they tried really hard to be that, I think maybe they're the switch. Maybe the Mongols are the inauguration of because modernity is vicious. It's absolutely cruel. There's no, World War II, we bomb Europe, and US bombs Europe and Japan for no reason, really. The bombing campaign against the oil targets in Indonesia and in Romania made tons of sense, or even the oil targets in Germany where they had refineries. But anything beyond that was just pure sadistic cruelty. So even the good guys in World War II were actually sadistic, evil bastards. And so okay, I'll do it, because you made me think about it. I can't think of it. The French, maybe, in not not in Asia and Africa, but the French in Canada, maybe a hint of that because of their tolerant policies towards the Native Americans.
Some of the fire bombings that the U.S. did in Tokyo, Neil deGrasse Tyson was explaining it. I'm going to do a terrible job. But we would firebomb in and drop bombs in clusters trying to make circles. Get a big circle in a section of town or around a town. It was all wood structures. So you just drop tons of firebombs all around. And something with the science about it, the fire draws in, like the smoke draws in and up, which creates a vacuum with all the fire. So if you bomb around everyone who's inside, that fire just pulls in and it incinerates everything inside. And we were firebombing clusters around towns and in towns as well. But we were firebombing it. Like I keep saying firebombing. We were firebombing. And it was causing everything to come in like a vacuum and just like you see a bomb explode, like imagine a nuclear bomb. It hits, blows out, and then sucks back in. Well, that's what all the bombing was doing, was causing a vacuum, everything coming inside. And as it would come in, it would get hotter and hotter and hotter, and then just not like an explosion to suck in, but just naturally just bringing everything together, and everything just got hotter and hotter and hotter, and then it was a giant fire. I think I did a terrible job explaining that.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go with that. Last comment.
What do you think happened to the Caliph when he got captured by the Mongols? Because I've heard two stories like that they sealed him in a tower and bricked it up.
Okay, I've never heard that.
Or they wrapped him
In a carpet. Yeah, that's the normal. Yeah, because a ruler is sacred, because they were originally animists, and you couldn't let the blood of a ruler hit the ground because it was sacred. It was a waste. So what they did was they rolled them into a carpet and then had horses trample them to death. I've never heard the tower one, but that would fit because then they're not spilling his blood. The king of Afghanistan, I guess was he the Ghaznavid? I think he was the Ghaznavid ruler. They married him. They got one of the Mongol generals. They shaved him so that he had no body hair, and they put him in a woman's wedding gown. And they had one of their generals marry him and left him as the king. That way, there could be no other king, but they completely effeminized him so that nobody would ever follow his edicts. Because there was a honeymoon. Because they were the Mongols.
I've read a couple of books by the Arab travelers and stuff. It seems like they mention Alexander the Great a lot.
Arabs love Alexander the Great. They look at him as like this amazing hero, which is the Persians do too, which is really weird because he smashed Persia. You would think they would hate him, but like Iskander is a common name throughout the Middle East. He's revered as having been a really cool guy by pretty much everybody. I think of him as just a crazy megalomaniac, but he wasn't vicious at least. You know what I mean? Just so what he thought he was the son of Zeus. You know? Everybody has their quirk. All right, I've gone way past now. Thanks so much. You guys ask great questions.
Okay. Well, I finally was able to conquer this video. I started it. I did like the first three. I think I did the first three in like the same week. Then I did the fourth video the next week. And then I just got so sidetracked with all these other requests and everything. Episode 5 and 6, I just got done this week. And it's been probably a 3-week break. And I absolutely hate breaking them up like that so far in terms of time. But that's just sometimes how the cards play. I'm hungry now. I'm going to go eat some fish sticks because I'm a toddler. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I did. And until next time, have a good day. Have a good night.